sometimes representative democracy does work. You know, the submission earlier was not to completely dismiss representative democracy, but it was to raise a caution when we extend representation into domains that are best served by direct participation. I think that's a big issue for us. We need to wake up and we need to look at that. But we do celebrate when we have representatives who remain, you know, engaged and relevant and, providing leadership in their communities. So it does, it does happen. And you asked the question to say, what is the answer to this crisis of representative democracy? I think community is the answer, and we need to understand what a community is. A community is a set of relationships. It's a network of relationships. Because what happens is, if there is a relationship, if we establish a relationship, it establishes a social obligation for me to be there for you and you to be there for me. If I know you and we are a community and we are engaged and we are meeting, we are talking, there's no way that I'll look the other way when I hear you are being marked. So what has happened with this fragmentation is that those relationships have broken. We've become fragmented, we've become polarized, and there is no community at the end of the day. So you can end up having one corrupt business person running riots and terrorizing a community that has 40,000 people. And there's nothing that you can do about it because you're not talking to each other, you're not connected, you don't have relationships with each other. So all the issues that we are talking about now, the answer really lies at a community level. So even, Lenin and the brilliant work that you are doing, and all of us and the work that we are doing, we have to find a way of making sure that this work is anchored in communities. It cannot survive if it's only online. It's so that when they switch off internet, you stop being an activist. If they close, if Mark Zuckerberg closes Facebook, your whole activism stops. If Twitter shuts down, your activism stops. That should not be the case. We should be anchored in communities. And it also speaks to the question of how institutions deliver. Because there is, if you look at a country like Zimbabwe, we are very good. We have one of the best constitutions in the world. When we were writing this constitution, we went to Brazil, we went to Kenya, South Africa, we borrowed the best. So if you look at it, it's really one of the best. It's the best Bill of Rights and all. We have all the Chapter 12 institutions, that are there. So we are very good at establishing what they call the normative frameworks. But sometimes they are a shell, they do not deliver. There's a Defense Commission, there's a Judicial Service Commission, there's Gender Commission, all of these things. And my own submission is that institutions only deliver on their mandate, not because they've been established, there's a beautiful constitution, or there are good people in there, but when there is an organized constituency that is vigorously demanding and taking a stance to demand that those institutions deliver. That's when you start to see delivery happening. So we cannot run away from the aspect of organizing. Whether it's a sustainability question, democracy question, human rights question, it all boils down to how organized we are as constituencies, and particularly how organized we are as a community. So that is the answer. The work that we have championed around Citizens Manifesto is actually just to support that, empower communities to become more organized on their own, so that they can handle issues that emerge on their own. It's almost an elitist thing that we can separate democracy, rights, climate, and all of this. Like I went to some community in Nairobi a couple of weeks ago, and they say, no, we are a local social movement, and we work to stop extrajudicial killings. But what you find out is that if you are really working in a community, you don't define your issues like 5 years in advance in a strategic plan, and then that's what you're doing. You're ticking off a log frame and you're implementing it. The issues are so dynamic, they emerge. The next day, the main issue will be that people are getting mad coming from work. If you're a relevant community organizer and a relevant local movement, there's no way you're going to ignore that and say our issue is extrajudicial killings. So it's really, these issues don't exist in silos, they exist together. So if we organize our constituencies at the bottom, it gives us the agency to be able to impact. Because if you look at especially what's happening around the environment question in this country, it pains you. If you drive going into Dombosha, there was that little beautiful natural forest that had been set aside with, you know, wildlife and everything. And people just go in there and chop firewood. You know, indigenous trees that are going to take 70 years to grow, and there's no one doing anything. And it will be one person who can come and terrorize, because again, the community is not organized. So we cannot run away from this question of, you know, organize. And the last thing that I want to say is that you guys, I think you've really put your finger on the pulse when it comes to this issue around sustainability. It is becoming an overriding priority everywhere, because our climate is at the risk of peril. We stand a risk of completely disappearing as a civilization. In fact, a good brother of mine, Kumi Naidu, who's now with Amnesty International, but he was with Greenpeace, he says it's not the crisis, it's not the climate or the earth that's in crisis, so that's going to become extinct. Earth will always be there. It's human life and civilization that is going to disappear if we don't change the way that, you know, we are relating to our environment. If we do not wake up, I'm just coming from Cape Town, where we had a conference on financing the future, with, you know, people who have significant investments committing to pull out all the investments from fossil fuels, because everyone realizes that this fossil fuel civilization is what has taken us to this point of precipice and to this danger. So there's a massive movement around shifting to renewable energy that we need to take advantage of. And those of you who really go deep into this thing, if you look at it, just look at, you know, if you look at the, some of you will remember that we used to pay $200 to buy a SIM card for a cell phone. And now it's come down to $1. So if you look at solar panels and everything, they also used to cost that much. But because of technology, the prices are coming down. So renewable energy technology is becoming more and more affordable. And the more affordable it becomes, the less attractive it is to your old monopolistic type of capitalist enterprises. That's why the example I was giving you earlier, in Germany, less than 5% of the new businesses are owned by the old companies. Most of these are now communities.